In the winter of 1986, a young secretary named Robin Swanson wanted to buy some flowers. Her boss's spouse was getting surgery at the time, so Robin thought it would be a nice gesture to buy her a gift. So she went to her local flower shop called Floral Fantasies and purchased a standard bouquet for $23.95. Her boss's wife was thankful for the gift, and that was that. Or so she thought. A few weeks later, Robin realized that she had been charged $601.11 for the flowers, the equivalent of $1,600 today. Unsurprisingly, Robin was pissed, and she turned from a secretary into an investigator. The months following the charge would take Robin and her husband down a path that was anything but ordinary. Between spying inside a gated community, phone calls with the charismatic young entrepreneur, and a fight with hired bodyguards, Robin went through it all just to get her money back. But she ended up doing far more. She helped set the foundation for the downfall of one of the biggest and most bizarre Ponzi schemes of the 1980s. A scheme that was created by a man named Barry Minkow. In 1982, a 16-year-old Barry was in high school, and all he wanted was to be noticed. However, being a skinny, non-athletic guy, his chances of hanging with the popular crowd were very low. He wanted to change that, so he started taking steroids and lifting weights, but more importantly, he started a carpet cleaning business called ZZZZ. While the name didn't make much sense, entering the carpet cleaning industry did. Barry's mother managed a carpet cleaning business where he had spent multiple summers working, and the carpet cleaning industry as a whole was on the rise. While most suburban homes were carpeted where he grew up in Southern California, around 80% of the owners never paid for carpet cleaning. So, thanks to a loan from a friend at his gym and other gym contacts he hired for key positions at his company, he managed to get his business off the ground while balancing his high school studies. And in just a few months, Barry's business was picking up quick. ZZZZ stood out among competitors because of how consistent they were. While other companies used sleazy sales tactics, ZZZZ cleaned carpets at the exact price they advertised at the times their customers requested, which were sometimes very late at night. Barry's lucrative business prompted several local media outlets to tell his story of being a successful high school entrepreneur, and those news stories attracted some serious investors. And so, with some fresh investments, Barry was able to expand rapidly, and by the time he graduated high school in 1984, he had 80 employees at 3 offices and reported $1.3 million in revenue. Barry was finally being noticed, and to celebrate, he decided to buy a $698,000 mansion in a gated community. On top of that, he bought multiple sports cars, including a white BMW, a red Ferrari, and a black Porsche for his girlfriend. Barry Minkow was living the high life. Meanwhile, Robin's life at the time was much more ordinary. Her daily routine consisted of dropping her youngest kids off at daycare, driving to work, picking up her kids after work, and helping with homework. She didn't have time for much else, but an erroneous $600 charge for flowers wasn't going to slide with her. After realizing the mistake, she called Floral Fantasies to notify them of the error, and the person who answered her call connected her to the owner of the company. And his name was Barry Minkow. It turns out that Barry had bought the flower shop in the fall of 1985 as a side business, and while it was mostly run by one of his associates, Barry still had influence over the company. While talking to Barry over the phone, Robin quickly took a liking to his young and charming personality and believed in his promise of fixing the charge right away. But as weeks went by, the company never repaid her. Meanwhile, Robin's credit card company declined to reimburse the overcharged flowers because, according to their policy, 60 days had passed since the error. This further upset Robin, as she didn't plan on contacting her credit card company within those 60 days because she firmly believed that Barry would make good. At this point, Robin had 2 options: disregard and forget about the situation entirely, or dig a little further. Of course, she chose the latter, and in her words became, quote, a little obsessed. She looked up Barry's address to his mansion and scaled the fence to sneak into his gated community. She didn't plan on confronting him, but rather, she just wanted to get a closer look at the person who took her $600. And there she was, staring at a teenage millionaire living in a ginormous house who proved everyone wrong. But Robin, nor hardly anyone else, knew what was really going on with Barry and his business. In reality, Barry Minkow's fortune, mansion, and cars were the fruits of a fraudulent empire. In the early days of his company, Barry faked burglaries at his headquarters to collect insurance checks, and also stole money and jewelry from his relatives to pay off suppliers and employees. But these scams were just the beginning of Barry's laundry list of criminal activities. His scheming grew far more complex with the creation of a fictitious company called Interstate Appraisal Services, a company he and his friend Tom Paget started that aimed to defraud banks and investors out of millions of dollars. To explain the scheme in simple terms, ZZZZ would claim to work on carpet restoration projects supposedly worth millions of dollars. Now, these restoration projects were completely made up by Barry. However, Tom, who was an insurance claims adjuster, conspired with Barry and forged documents crediting ZBest for this restoration work and used Interstate Appraisal Services as the source to verify these claims. These now verified restoration projects made Barry's company appear far larger than it actually was, which in turn drew in investors whose funds could be used to pay off earlier investors and expand the company. Basically, ZBest was a Ponzi scheme. Newer investors were always paying off existing loans, and this cycle continued for years. However, the scams didn't stop there. Another way Barry raised money was by overcharging customers' credit cards. Now, this scheme was tiny compared to the fake restoration projects, but he collected enough money through it to make it worthwhile. And if a customer found out, he'd blame the problem on an employee and pay them back. And the scrutiny typically ended there. But after numerous frustrated phone calls, Barry never paid back Robin, a clear victim of his credit card scam. And this was a big mistake. In September of 1986, Robin filed a lawsuit against ZBest in small claims court. Her husband Bill went to serve the papers at one of Barry's offices, and he was quickly greeted by Barry, who had 3 bodyguards by his side. Barry snatched the papers from Bill and threw them in the trash while saying, "This is what you can do with your fucking lawsuit." One of the bodyguards then proceeded to jump Bill and smash his eyeglasses into pieces. Now, the Swansons considered pressing charges against Barry, but instead went ahead with the small claims case against him. Barry didn't show up to court on the day of the trial, and the judge ruled in Robin's favor. However, the victory was a pity one at best. The judge declined to award payments towards Robin's stolen money or the damage to Bill's glasses, and criticized Robin for not disputing the charge with their credit card company fast enough. Furious with this decision, Robin contacted an LA Times reporter named Daniel Axe, someone who had written a piece on Barry previously, and explained to him how she had been cheated by Barry as a last-ditch effort to take him down. She sent numerous documents to Daniel, but didn't hear anything back. As Robin continued to fight, ZBest continued to ascend. By December of 1986, the company had grown to over 1,300 employees and got listed on the NASDAQ. The stock began trading at $4 and soared to $18 within months, giving ZBest a market cap of over $280 million and Barry a net worth of over $100 million. And even better for Barry, he was given an opportunity to end his Ponzi scheme once and for all and become a legitimate business through and through. ZBest announced in April of 1987 that they planned to acquire KeyServe Group, a company that was Sears' authorized carpet cleaner at the time. KeyServe was netting $80 million in annual revenue, which was more than enough money to provide enough cash flow to end Barry's Ponzi scheme and become the largest independent carpet cleaning company in the US. If the deal had gone through, Barry would have gotten away with all of his crimes. But just 4 days before the deal was about to close, a miracle happened. Robin, who was trying to forget everything that happened to her, received an unexpected call that spring. A call from Daniel. He was preparing to leave the LA Times for a job at the Wall Street Journal and came across Robin's information while cleaning his desk. He called Robin to let her know that, because of her tip, he was about to publish an article that fully exposed Barry's credit card scams. In the article titled "Behind WizKid is a Trail of False Credit Card Billings," Daniel went into excruciating detail on numerous occasions where Barry's customers were overcharged in the exact same way as Robin. Now, the story only covered the relatively minor fraud Barry was up to, but this one headline ignited a domino effect of damage to his company. The day the article was published, ZBest stock sank 25%. In addition, the underwriters and auditors all withdrew from officiating the KeyServe deal, effectively squashing the deal that would have saved Barry. By July of 1987, his company's stock was trading at just 75 cents per share, which led both Barry and his company to file for bankruptcy. And after an investigation into his company proved he was running a Ponzi scheme, he was convicted on charges of racketeering, money laundering, securities fraud, credit card fraud, and more. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison in order to pay back defrauded investors $26 million. All thanks to a secretary who wanted to buy her boss's wife flowers.